Henry William Frederick Albert was born at York Cottage, Sandringham, on 31st March 1900, and was the fifth child and third son of George V and Mary of Teck. At the time of Henry's birth, he was fifth in the line of succession to the throne, behind his grandfather, father, and two elder brothers. Henry was born with knock-knees, which meant he had to wear painful splints, and like his older brother, Albert, he had a speech disorder which left him unable to pronounce the R letter. Henry also had a lisp and a nervous condition, which led to spontaneous fits of crying or giggling. Henry's poor health was of grave concern to his parents, who mollycoddled him. However, they were persuaded to send him to school to build his character. Henry had the distinction of being the first son of a British monarch to attend school when he was enrolled at St. Peter's Court in Broadstairs as a day boy. However, he loved it so much he soon became a boarder. In September 1913, Henry started at Eton College, where he did not excel academically, but his nervous disposition improved greatly, and he made a lot of new friends due to his love for sports, especially football and cricket. Henry, always small and fragile, developed into a robust young man who surpassed his brothers in height. Henry and Albert were allowed to attend Trinity College in Cambridge for a year. However, the king restricted their activities so they wouldn't mix with the wrong sort. After graduation, Henry chose to join the army, and he entered Sandhurst in 1919, where he was commissioned a second lieutenant in the King's Royal Rifle Corps. Though Henry wanted to see action as a soldier, his position as a senior member of the royal family effectively ruled out any such options. Henry was promoted to captain on 11 May 1927 and was appointed a personal aide-de-camp to his father on 2 August 1929. In May 1925, Henry was appointed Colonel-in-Chief of the Gloucestershire Regiment upon his father's Silver Jubilee, and when his older brother Edward became king, he was appointed a personal aide-de-camp to him and then to George VI when he took over. In September 1928, Henry and Edward travelled on an expedition to Africa, where Henry met Beryl Markham, a British-born Kenyan aviator, who was married to film producer Mansfield Markham. Henry and Beryl were soon embroiled in a love affair, although there is a difference of opinion over whether the affair began in Africa or back in England. As the king's health deteriorated, both princes were ordered to return home, and Beryl followed them, taking up residence at the Grosvenor Hotel. The affair between Henry and Beryl soon became common knowledge in London society, and when the news shocked Queen Mary, the king took matters into his own hands and arranged for Henry to undertake a series of foreign tours which would keep him busy. When Henry returned to England in 1929, Beryl's husband had filed for divorce and threatened to make Henry's private letters to Beryl public if he did not agree to look after her. The affair ended, and Henry never saw Beryl again, although he continued to pay a stipend to her death in 1985. Under increasing pressure from his parents, Henry decided it was time to settle down, and he proposed to Lady Alice Montague, Douglas Scott, sister of one of his best friends. The wedding was due to take place at Westminster Abbey on 6 November 1935. However, it was moved to the private chapel at Buckingham Palace when Alice's father died shortly beforehand. After the abdication of Edward VIII in December 1936, he was succeeded by Albert, Duke of York, who took the regnal name of George VI, and Henry became the first adult in the line of succession. While Albert had two daughters, Elizabeth and Margaret, both were still young, and Henry would have to act as regent in the event his brother died before Elizabeth came of age. As a result, Henry was not allowed to leave England in the king's absence, and his official duties increased, curbing the freedom he had been enjoying. During the Second World War, Henry joined the British Expeditionary Force and was appointed as a chief liaison officer on 4 September 1939. In January 1940, he was appointed to the colonelcies of the Ulster Anti-Aircraft Regiments, the Royal Artillery, and the Territorial Army, where he was slightly wounded when his staff car was attacked from the air. In August 1940, he was appointed Chief Liaison Officer and became second in command of the 20th Armoured Brigade before being promoted to Lieutenant General on 17th September 1941. On 27th October 1944, he was promoted to the rank of full general. When George, Duke of Kent, died in a plane crash in August 1942, the king decided Henry would not be sent on any further missions that could prove dangerous. Henry was appointed Governor-General of Australia in 1944, and he travelled extensively throughout the country with Alice. Henry returned to England in March 1947, after which he served in the office of Lord High Commissioner to the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. After the death of George VI, Henry continued to perform official duties on behalf of his niece, Elizabeth II, including overseas tours. However, they were soon curtailed by ill health. Henry suffered his first stroke in 1965 while returning from the funeral of Winston Churchill, which resulted in a car crash. Henry continued to suffer from a series of strokes, which eventually left him paralysed and unable to speak. Henry was so fragile, Alice could not bear to tell him their eldest son, William, had died in a plane crash in 1972. When Henry died on 10 June 1974, he was the last surviving child of George V and Queen Mary. He was buried in the Royal Burial Ground, Frogmore. George Edward Alexander Edmund was born in York Cottage, Sandringham, on 20th December 1902, and was the fourth son of George V and Mary of Teck. At the time of his birth, George's parents were the Prince and Princess of Wales, and he was fifth in the line of succession behind his father and three older brothers, Edward, Albert, and Henry. George was initially educated by a tutor before following his brother, Henry, to prep school in Kent. However, he was only 13 when he entered Naval College at Osborne. George remained on active service in the Royal Navy until March 1929, serving on HMS Iron Duke and HMS Nelson. As a young man, George was reputed to have had numerous affairs with both men and women, including musical star Jessie Matthews and playwright Noel Coward. However, it was his relationship with American socialite Kiki Preston which caused the royal family the most concern, as the couple were rumoured to be addicted to morphine and cocaine. Various attempts were made to keep the pair apart. However, nothing worked until Kiki was forced to leave England. There were rumours George had fathered a son with Kiki, but these have never been confirmed. Hoping George would settle down, a marriage was quickly arranged with Marina of Greece and Denmark, and they married on 29 November 1934 at Westminster Abbey. The couple went on to have 3 children: Edward, born 9 October 1935, Alexandra, born 25 December 1936, and Michael, born 4 July 1942. On 12 October 1934, George was created Duke of Kent, Earl of St Andrews, and Baron Downpatrick. In 1936, George was appointed as personal aide-de-camp to his eldest brother, Edward VIII, and following the abdication, he was then appointed as personal naval aide-de-camp to his brother, Albert, who took the regnal name of George VI. In March 1937, he was granted a commission in the Royal Air Force as a group captain and was promoted to Air Vice Marshal in June 1939. After the outbreak of the Second World War, George relinquished his rank as an air officer to assume the post of staff officer at RAF Training Command in the rank of group captain. On 25 August 1942, George was killed when his flying boat crashed into a hillside near Caithness, Scotland, while flying from Invergordon to Iceland on non-operational duties. George was buried in the Royal Burial Ground, Frogmore, directly behind Queen Victoria's mausoleum. John Charles Francis was born at York Cottage, Sandringham, on 12 July 1905 and was the youngest child and fifth son of George V and Mary of Teck. At the time of his birth, John was sixth in the line of succession behind his father and four older brothers. However, the decision to name him John was rather controversial, as it was considered an unlucky royal name. As a grandchild of the reigning British monarch in the male line, and a son of the Prince of Wales, he was formally styled HRH Prince John of Wales from birth. John was christened on 3 August in the Church of St Mary Magdalene at Sandringham and was placed into the care of the family nanny Charlotte Bill, who was nicknamed Lala. John was described as a charming and amusing child. However, by the time he reached his 4th birthday, he had started suffering from seizures and was showing signs of having learning difficulties. John did not attend his parents' coronation on 22nd June 1911 in case it caused him undue stress. However, the royal family were accused of trying to hide him, so he would not cause any embarrassment. John continued to participate in family events until his 11th birthday, but it was clear his behaviour was becoming increasingly unruly and the seizures more violent. In 1912, John and his closest sibling, George, Duke of Kent, began St Peter's Court Preparatory School at Broadstairs. However, John did not return the following summer. After the outbreak of the First World War, John's parents were kept busy with their official duties while their children were either at boarding school or in the military, so John spent most of his time alone. When John's seizures began to intensify in 1916, he was sent to live at Wood Farm, a modest cottage set in a secluded corner of Sandringham, with Nanny Bill. Although John was initially provided with a steady stream of tutors, he failed to make any progress, and his formal education was brought to an end. While there were plenty implications John was being forgotten about, the truth was rather different, as he was visited frequently by other members of the royal family and enjoyed spending time in the garden specially created for him by his grandmother, Queen Alexandra. In an effort to ease John's loneliness, Queen Mary arranged for local children to be brought to Sandringham as his playmates, and the young prince became close to Winifred Thomas, a young girl from Halifax who had been sent to the country to ease her asthma. John's siblings also came to visit. However, the severity of their younger brother's seizures upset them so much they were eventually prohibited from seeing him. On 18th of January 1919, John suffered a severe seizure which led to his death, and his mother remarked in her diary how she relieved she was for his suffering to have come to an end, as it had been hard to bear. John was buried at St Mary Magdalene Church on 21st January 1919,